Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be another palette dupes video where we ask ourselves, how similar are they? Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, as is Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup the way that I am, then definitely stay tuned because today's video, I'm going to be comparing 4 eyeshadow palettes by swatching them out and really seeing how similar these actually are. And in the run-up to my decluttering series, this video had been so helpful to really see where the overlap lies in some of my palettes, and I could determine, like, based on doing these videos for about 6 months now, what I could get rid of as well. Now, some of these you will still see in the upcoming eyeshadow palette declutter. That's going to be the final one, of course. But yeah, today I have another 4 to compare to see how similar are they? Are they anything alike, or are these super unique? Let's just get to it. But before we do that, it may be good to know that I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, which greatly skews my makeup preferences. And because I have been buying, trying, and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I also have some very strong favorites. So if you'd like to stay tuned for all of that goodness, and click the subscribe button down below. So yes, which are the 4 palettes that we will be comparing today? I decided to rope in the Cashmerie 8 by Viseart. I keep saying the Cashmerie Étendue, but I don't believe it's actually called that. This is one of my favorite neutral palettes of all time by now, and it's just such a lovely palette. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't put this guy in a palette dupes video just yet. So I wanted to make sure that I could compare my favorite neutral palette to some other neutral palettes I have in different price points, because the Viseart may be a bit expensive to some people. And there are a couple of recent releases from indie brands that I really enjoyed. So the Gloss Gods New Neutral is one that I just wanted to see how similar it might be. But this has quite a lot of green and sort of peachy leaning shades. But this, in terms of a neutral palette, was really successful for me. And I just wanted to give it a whirl, mainly because I feel the new neutral by Gloss Gods is what I wanted the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural to be. And this is where the comparison with the Viseart also comes in, because this also has some of these like rosy shades, but it also has the green and some of the peachiness. So I felt that these 3 made a really good pairing. And the Glaminatrix just wasn't my favorite, but I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. And then we have the Zoeva Together We Grow, because this is another one of my favorite neutral palettes. And here we don't get the purpliness, but we do again get something that leans a little bit more green. And we also have some like peachy gold warmer tones in here. So I was just wondering, how similar are these? And that's what's going to be the topic of today's video. So those are the 4 palettes. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one individually and how I like the quality first, and then I'm going to take you down to the floor and we're going to do some swatches to actually compare these color stories. So I already mentioned how I love the Viseart Cashmerie. I've put this in like top 10 favorite neutral palettes before, and it's just one of my all-time favorite neutral palettes. Why? Because it's warm toned, cool toned, and like a bit more middle of the road, neutral toned, all in one go. So you've got some cooler tones towards the bottom. We get these rosy things here. We get a bit of warmth, and then we get the neutrals. So it just has a little bit of everything. And one thing I really appreciate about this Viseart palette is how you can use it whichever way you like, and you're always going to get a look. You can use this as quads. You can break it up into like the 2 pans like this way and this way. You can like go in like little duos. You can go into little duos like this. Like no matter which shade you put together, you're going to pretty much get a matte and a shimmer every single time that goes together. And it's just incredibly foolproof. The Viseart formula is one of my favorites as well. It's really nice and blendable, easy to work with. The mattes especially is where they shine. Their shimmers aren't usually like pow in your face metallic, which is why I wanted to show you this compared to the Gloss Gods, because that has some more impactful metallic shimmers, if that's what you prefer. I prefer this like for work every day. This is great. I know some people get a bit allergic when people talk about everyday makeup, but you need to remember that not everybody works in a makeup-based industry, and not everybody can get away with everything at work. I know a lot of people do. Like I wear a lot of these things to work, and I'm a teacher, so I can get away with it, but I know there are some stricter rules depending on the country where you live and what kind of industry you work at in. So this is definitely a really good one for, let's just call it professional wear, where, you know, you just, if you work in a situation where you can't wear too much, Viseart all day, every day. So I already mentioned how the Gloss Gods definitely has some more impactful shimmers than the Viseart, because this, I mean, you can already see how these shimmers reflect the light, especially this one here in the middle, and also here this one, but this has duochromes and multichromes in, so I'm not sure if you can see here, but this one in the mirror, you can see how green it pulls, and I'm not sure if I can show you this, but no, the minute I move the mirror too much, you can no longer see, but this one also has this green flip, and also this entire bottom row has this green tint. So that's why I think this, and also some of this, I can also see in the Zoeva. So that's why I wanted to pull that palette in here. This is lovely quality, and Gloss Gods is an EU-based indie brand. They're from Sweden. So that's why I wanted to feature them here, because I know a lot of my viewers are in the EU, and it's one of the indie brands where you finally don't have to pay for all of the shipping and handling fees and customs. They're still shipping for sure, but they do regular sales. So if you were interested in some Gloss Gods, I would recommend waiting for some of that. And then these are not as expensive as most places. This retails for a similar price point to the Viseart if you add all the shipping and handling fees. The most expensive palette I have here is the Glaminatrix, not just because of the price point, but because this is an Australian brand that, of course, needs to then, you know, most other countries you're going to have to pay for shipping and handling fees. So also if you're in the EU or in the US, you're probably going to have to pay for customs. And that makes this palette easily 65 euros in the end once you get it in. This is also a brand where you need to wait for shipping for quite a long time. With Gloss Gods, I've been able to place an order and I get it within a week. With the Glaminatrix, I placed the order at the start of July when this came out, and it didn't get to me until, I think, the end of August. I think it wasn't in yet when I filmed my eyeshadow palette collection video last year. So it wasn't in yet, and so it took almost 2 months to get here, and that has to do with the way the business is run. I do know that they're trying to make some changes where they have more actually in stock, and they don't have people pay up front to then have the palettes made and then ship them out, because that's what they were doing. Which, I mean, from a business perspective, that's really smart, because then you have the actual money to have the palettes made, but it does mean that your customers have to wait a bit longer. So yeah, with Glaminatrix, it's just not going to be instant gratification. And in here, I just felt a bit disappointed once I got it home, because this ended up looking so much more warm-toned in real life than I had expected. So where I really like the Viseart and I really like the Gloss Gods for some reasons, this pulls that in a slightly different way where I'm like, the really only cool tone shades are these two and that, and I feel that they don't really go with anything else. The thing I love about the Viseart is that even if something is a bit more warm toned, it will still go with the rosy shades. And in here, I got so many more rosy leaning shades than I had expected. So these two are quite rosy. We get this, it's all quite rosy. We get these two that are super warm toned. This is like a bit of a weird shade on my skin tone. And then the two greens in the middle didn't look green on me at all. They pulled gold. And so they weren't perfect for me, so that's why I was like, And some of these shimmers, where are they? This one, this one, this one, and this one. It didn't matter which one I put on my eyes, they all looked identical. So where I was hoping this could be a super versatile, interesting neutral palette, it was just a little bit lacking. Was it pretty? Yes, but I also had some issues picking up the shimmers in this one, so it wasn't perfect, which is why I ended up buying the Gloss Gods, because I felt that was like, that I think was what I wanted this one to be, and it was. And then finally, the Zoeva. This is a palette that everybody sleeps on, the Together We Grow. I'm super excited to try some of their new quads, but as some of you were pointing out in the comments, they're 28 euros a piece. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to hold off on that for now, but yeah, this is a lovely, lovely palette, and I believe this was as much as one of their quads. Like, this was $27.50. So if you want more shades, then maybe get this one instead. It's got the really nice shiny packaging, which of course is going to throw off the lighting, but I already mentioned it's got the green tones. We get these like orangey red shades, then these more neutrally leaning shades, and then 2 shades to blend things out. What I love about this is that, like the Viseart, you can use this as like little duos because you get a matte and a shimmer every single time, because these are all the mattes and these are all the shimmers. You can use it as a row each. Great to look that way. You can also use it as quads, so that will work as well. And then these two actually go really nicely with these ones on this end, or with these ones as well. So I think that it's just a really cleverly laid out palette that does a lot, and because all of the shades kind of go together, you can do just so much with it. And this is a palette nobody talks about. Like Viseart, this doesn't have the interesting shimmers that the Glaminatrix and the Gloss Gods have. So this is, again, a little bit more middle of the road, great for every day. And if you're in the EU, it's another brand that's quite easy to get because they're based in Germany. And their official website, which does ship internationally, just like Gloss Gods does, but it means that in the EU, you don't have to pay for any shipping and handling fees. And I believe they even have free shipping over 45 euros. So if you were to buy this and one of the quads, you will essentially get free shipping. You've got some good quality eyeshadow, and it's not going to set you back that much money. I do know that in the US, Zoeva used to be sold at Ulta, and they have been completely taken off the market, I believe. You can still buy it. Zoeva, official website, zoevacosmetics.com, ships internationally. But then for once, the US viewers will have to pay for shipping and handling fees like I do when I buy from US indie brands, which I just recently did because I got the new Nomad palette and the new Fantasy Cosmetica, and I did buy myself the restock of the Shroud Cosmetics Moonfall because I couldn't resist. So yes, those were the 4 palettes that I wanted to chat about with you. Let's go down to the floor so we can actually see how similar these are in a swatch. Welcome to the floor. Let's compare these palettes and do some swatches. Let me open them up so it's easier viewing. So here are all 4 color stories laid out, and I think I did a pretty good job at like mashing up the ones I feel are the most similar. So I feel these 2 are quite similar and these 2 are quite similar. And then this has some of this as well as this. And then this has some of this, this, and that. So we'll see how it goes. Let's just see, where do we start? I think every single one of these palettes has one of these like mid-tone brownish mattes. And this seems to be more cool tones, so maybe compare those 2 instead in a minute. Or maybe those 2. This is much too orange. It's more like this one. So I think we're going to start with some mattes. So let me swatch this one. And then that's the one. So here's the Glaminatrix. Here's the Viseart. The new neutrals. The Gloss Gods, I should say. And here is the Zoeva. So that's those 4 shades. And then you can just see how orange this shade is from the Glaminatrix. Then the one from the Gloss Gods is also quite orange, but it's a little bit more peach. It's less yellow toned, which is probably why it works for me. Then the one from the Viseart, you can just see that it's far more neutral compared to anything else that's going on here. And then the Zoeva one as well, like it's so cool toned compared to these other 2 things. But quite similar, save for, I think, the Glaminatrix one. That one is a bit more, let's just say, warm tone. Maybe I can swatch this weird beigey shade because we don't have anything else like it. So let me swatch that here. And then you can just see, I did not need both of these in this palette because it's essentially the same shade. So these are too similar, I feel. Then I think both of these palettes have this like light cream that's missing from the Zoeva. Maybe this one is coming close. So the Zoeva, I can swatch that. And then the Glaminatrix doesn't have that shade. So here's the Viseart, the Gloss Gods, and there's the Zoeva. You can just see that the Zoeva one is nothing like it. But the Gloss Gods and the Viseart are very similar. So then I think I want to see and tackle this one. So this is actually more of a mix between these 2, but I'll swatch this next to it so you can actually see what it does. It's more like a mustard yellow on me. This is that green tone matte, this one is a more cool tone matte, and this is a more cool tone matte. So let me get those ones out of the way first. So here we have the Gloss Gods. I don't think the Viseart has anything like it. Then we'll take both of these Glaminatrix shades and then this Zoeva shade. So here is Gloss Gods, Glaminatrix 1, Glaminatrix 2, and here is the Zoeva. And you can just see that, I mean, as green as this looks, what's the finger? Here's the finger. As green as it just looks weird on my skin tone, that green from Glaminatrix. It's just not, it just clashes too much. The cool tone one is pretty, but it's very similar to the Gloss Gods one, but the Gloss Gods one, you can just tell that it has a little bit of a hint of something green, but it's not too green. It doesn't pull weird. And the Zoeva one is more neutral. It's more of a like neutral leaning brown to me. It's not overly cool toned. So each one of these palettes has this cool tone matte dark brown, save for the Zoeva one. So let me swatch those out. So here's the Viseart, which is a bit softer almost. It's got a lot of gray running through it. I'm not sure if you can see. Here's the Gloss Gods, which looks quite plump. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. And then this is the Glaminatrix, which is one of the reasons why, you know, that's still my favorite shade, like one of the favorite shades in this palette to me, but it's a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure if you can see what I mean. The other two just pull a little bit better on my skin tone, I find, and it goes with a lot more. But yeah, I'm surprised at how red this looks compared to the other two shades. And then I think we just have like this sort of warm toned stuff left and the rosy shades. And we don't have this dark of a rosy shade in any of these. So let me do some of those like side by side. So here we have the Viseart, the rosy one. This is the Glaminatrix. And here's that plum from the Glaminatrix. And I'm not sure if you can see, but this pulls far more blue tone pink. And this is far more warm toned, more peachy leaning on me. And this, I mean, it looks pretty purpley in the pan here. But when I swatch it, I don't know. It's far too warm toned. And it stained my hand. I'm not sure if you can see, but that really vibrant neon peachy thing that I've got going on the back of my hand now, that's from that plum shade. Just so you know. And then we have these warm tones over here left. So here's the Gloss Gods. And then this is that similar-ish shade from the Zoeva, far more orange. And then here is that more neutrally, it's a very neutral brown. It's a warm tone neutral brown. But that's why, like, these two are not my favorite from the Zoeva. I barely reach for these two, but they're there. So maybe now for the next round, we can use these like very warm tone shimmers. And I think this Viseart one can go with it, even though that's the odd one out. But I think these can all look similar-ish. Ooh. See, the Viseart one is warm toned, but it's more of like a copper almost. Here is the Gloss Gods one. And I hope you can see how pretty that peachy pinky shine has. So it's got a very warm base, but because of that shine, it actually works. That's the Glaminatrix, straight up orange. And do you just see how dark that cast is? So it doesn't really have the same flash as the Gloss Gods had. That has a vibrancy that the Glaminatrix is just lacking. And then here we have that bronzy shade from the Zoeva. Also very orange, but that does have that level of transparency that I would like it to have. And then the Viseart is far more like coppery bronze leaning. It has a lot more brown running through it. It's actually, I think, in the shimmers that we get the most sort of like different-ish things in here. So what do I want to do next? Because I don't feel something like this is really anything in here. It's not really in here. It's not really in here. This beigey shimmer is nothing like anything we've got going on here. So I'm not sure. Maybe these three? that can be a good one. So the Glaminatrix, the Viseart, and the Zoeva. So Glaminatrix has a super foily, shimmering formula, like it's got flecks of glitter in it, which I didn't love. Here is the Viseart. Ooh, so pretty. And here is the Zoeva. And you can just see that the Zoeva is very peachy. But that, was that really the Viseart one? I have not seen this then in all of its glory. That's a stunning shade. Do you see that? It's like a white gold champagne. It looks so boring in the pan, and then it does that. Holy smokes. Now, I'm just going to think of these 5 as like rosy tone shimmers, and then we can take this, this, and that from the Glaminatrix and see how those compare. I'm not sure whether these 4 are necessarily all going to be rosy toned, but we'll give it a shot. Because this, yeah, it's a bit peachy perhaps. Ooh, that's pretty. That's a very pretty shade. Oh, this should have gone with my peachy ones, like when I did the warm tones. I should have put it with that. And then this one as well. So those are all the shades in like the rosy section of the Viseart. And you can just see, I hope you can see, but that the Viseart plummy shade, like the deepest plummy shade, is an actual plum. Like you can see that purple, it's not as red. But then if we take these 3, then you can see that these are also quite similar to one another. Like this, I can feel the glitter in it when I swatch it, which I don't love. This one is my favorite, perhaps, but it's very sort of peach leaning compared to everything else here. Like I prefer something like this, which is this one over here, which is just far more like a mauve leaning rose, but this is like a peachy leaning one. And then we've got this, but I think it's more copper. Yeah, look at how reddish toned that is. I mean, if you have a warm undertone, this is going to be so pretty for you. But for my fair, cool to neutral toned skin, it's just not perfect. I mean, the sparkles are amazing, I'm not gonna lie. I almost skipped one because I think this Gloss Gods one can be put in here as well. But maybe I should swatch it against this, because did I already swatch this? I don't think I did. But this one, and this one, and maybe this one as well. Just for fun. I think we've had most of the shimmers in here, save for this like yellow thing. So here we have the Viseart, which is like, it's like a taupe-ish kind of shade, but not quite. It's like a warm taupe. And here we have the Gloss Gods. Oh, like it doesn't have any actual like true rosy tones, but do you see how that pulls rosy on my complexion? It just does. And then here is that Zoeva shade, which again, not my favorite, far too golden toned. And then this, oh, my pinky is just never the best for swatching. But then that's that yellow tone gold from the Glaminatrix. Not necessarily my favorite. Like these 2, I love. But these 2, I could do without. I think I only have one more shade left from the Viseart, which is this shade right here. I still have a couple left from the Gloss Gods, so I haven't swatched this yet, or this, or this, or this, or that. So I think that in terms of shimmers, this may be the most unique. Just saying. But let's go in with these cool toned sort of things that are a bit more green leaning, so you can see those differences. And then I'll swatch this one in a minute as well. So here's a Viseart. Like this. It's like that perfect minky gray shade. I love this. And together with that, it's going to be stunning. I've never put that together as a combo. Here is that shade from the Gloss Gods. That's this one down here. Do you see how it seems to be like a charcoal gray? But do you see the flash? Hello. It's so pretty. It's like green, gold, and peach at the same time. Here's the Zoeva, which is actually like a toned down version of the Gloss Gods. Like it has a similar flip, it just doesn't have as deep of a green base, but it's definitely there. And then here is that Glaminatrix shade, which looks green in the pan, but on me it looks yellow. Do with that what you wish. And then I was gonna take this shade from the Glaminatrix and put it here next to the Viseart, but that you can just see is far more like your classic silver, which this just doesn't have. And maybe just for completion's sake, if I put this one next to it, you can hopefully see that the Viseart one is softer and has more pink running through it. It's more like a soft pink, whereas this is more like your traditional silver shade. To my knowledge, we have swatched out both of these completely. So we only have a couple of these shades left. So let me show you these two, and maybe that one, just for good measure. So here's the Gloss Gods. Very sort of coppery, but again, it's got, do you see that flash? So pretty. This is the Zoeva one. Wait, I need to give it a bit. Like these Zoeva shimmers just look really weak against these Gloss Gods one, but that's a very different formula. And then this is the Glaminatrix again. You can just see that visible sparkle again. These three are quite similar. I think that's everything from the Zoeva as well. We've covered that. And then what we haven't covered yet is this. This is a very flaky one. This one as well. That one. And this one. And these are my three favorite shades from the palette. So this, I think the Gloss Gods is the most unique. Here again, it's sort of like that green, like pewter shade. That's the way I would describe it. This does swatch very difficult though. It's very difficult to pick up, but it's worth it once you get it there. This is that shade. Can you see what it does? It looks very warm toned here in the viewfinder, but I hope you can see that it, oh, there you have that green flash. If it hits the light just right, you get this really nice green flash. So it's a peach base with gold and then a green reflect. That's the shade I wanted this to be. I'll leave some space so I can swatch that right next to it. And then we have another one of those shades, namely right here, which has that peachy undertone. Do you just see how that changes color? That's a true multichrome. And that's again peach base with green and gold, and it's super stunning. Let me see if I still have a clean finger and swatch the Glaminatrix in between, and you can just see it pale. Like, sorry, but it pales in comparison. Like the Glaminatrix is good, but the Gloss Gods, I would say, is better. So quickly to round out this part of the video, what is my take now that I've swatched them all out? I think there are definitely similarities between these four. This is your neutral everyday. This is your very warm toned, if you have olive skin tone kind of thing. If you want something that's more neutral but that has some good warm tones in, then this is nice. And if you want something that's neutral but that has the exciting shimmers, then this is one for you. So I think there's a little bit here for everyone. This is for your everyday kind of gal, intense shimmers, good but more warm toned, and this is for super warm toned people, and I think we've got everything here. So thank you so very much for watching this part of the video. I'm going to go back to the couch where I'm going to be rounding out the rest. So I'm filming this bit of the video before I sit down to film the actual swatches, so you will have seen how similar these actually are, but current me doesn't know that yet, but I'm predicting that they can actually be quite similar. You definitely don't need all four, like I do. But hey, I make YouTube videos, so I want to be of service and show you some comparisons. So if you have any suggestions for palettes you know I have that you'd like to see me compare in a similar fashion, then definitely let me know in a comment down below. Thumbs up the video if you liked it and found it helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, so if you'd like to stay tuned for more, and then hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!